Hi, I'm Roy from Roy's Garage. Today I'm going to be working on a 2008 Saturn Aura XR 3.6 liter automatic. I'm going to be showing you how to replace the rear brake pads and rotors. These are the tools that I'm going to be using today to do this job. A hood prop, pry bar, air gun, 14mm wrench, 10mm wrench, 13mm wrench, 10mm wrench. This is a 10mm ratchet, 3/8 ratchet, 3/8 extension. This is a caliper piston tool, flat tip screwdriver, another screwdriver, a Phoenix brake bleeder, 1/2" impact, 19mm socket, some brake clean, bottle of water with a hole in it, my suction ball, ceramic grease, anti-seize, and my rubber mallet. These are the parts I'm going to be using today to do this job. Rear brake pads, rear rotors, and some .3 brake fluid. So I'm going to be doing the passenger rear brakes. What makes this one so different is your emergency brake is part of your brake caliper. So when I take it apart, I'm going to show you how to compress the piston. Okay, first I'm going to be loosening up this bleeder screw. Now is the time to do it. The caliper is mounted solid, so it's a lot easier to loosen it. And to just kind of snug it down. Okay, so I'm going to be removing this emergency brake cable mount first. Okay, so now I'm going to be removing these two caliper bolts to remove the caliper. Okay, so now I'm going to be removing the brake pads. So now I'm going to be removing the caliper mount. There's two bolts over here, 13mm wrench. Okay, remove the rotor. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to compress this piston. You don't just compress it like any other piston. What you need to do is you have to turn this clockwise and at the same time put pressure to shove it in. So what we're going to need to do is use this tool to put onto the piston. So you just got to find which nubs that would fit right into these slots. So that looks good. Get your wrench. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be opening up the bleeder screw. Just open it up. So now with my special caliper tool, piston tool, I'm gonna turn it clockwise, and at the same time I'm gonna be putting pressure inwards. So I'll be turning it clockwise, and at the same time I'm pushing it in. And if you can see, the brake fluid is coming out at the same time. You just crank it in like on screw. Crank it all the way in, and then you're gonna have to, with these slots, you just gotta line it straight up and down, because your brake pad, these nubs gonna be right into the slot. That's to prevent it from spinning. I'm using a premium coated rotor, so I'm gonna be cleaning the rotor with some brake clean just to make sure there's no oil on it. And when we road test it, what's going to happen is initially your brakes are going to sound like it's grinding, but what's happening is this coating eventually is going to be coming off, and maybe run them about 3 miles or so, eventually the noise will go away, all this coating will come off, and then your brakes will be good to go. So now I'm going to be cleaning the rotor with some brake clean, making sure that there's no oil on this rotor. Before I put the rotor on, I like to put some anti-seize around the hub, so the next time it won't get stuck. Okay. Put the rotor on, and then I'll just get one wheel nut and just put it on so the rotor doesn't flop around. So on this one, I'm going to be pulling out the 2 pins, and I'm going to be lubricating it. So pull the boot down and pull the pin out. Okay. So wipe it down. So I'm going to be putting some ceramic grease right into the caliper. So I'll be lubricating the pins. So I'm going to be lubricating this hardware. I'm going to be using the original hardware. In the brake pad kit, it does come with new hardware, but if your old one is still good, keep reusing it, because if you change it, a lot of times the new one doesn't fit good and wants to fall out and whatnot. So if these things are broken, then yeah, you got to replace it. But this one's not broken, it still looks good, so just lubricate it and reuse it. Okay, so now I'm going to be installing the caliper mount. Make sure you move your tray away. In case something falls down, then you don't want it to go into the tray. Okay, I'm going to be installing the outboard pad. The inboard pad has a wear indicator. What you do is you want to put it on the leading edge. Right now this rotor is turning clockwise, so you want this thing on the leading edge side. If you have one that's on this side, then what you got to put this on the opposite wheel. So what we can do is, you can either grease it before or after. It's up to you. Put a little bit of grease on the back of the pad. So I'm going to lubricate the caliper. lubricate a little of the pad, the back of the pad, slide it on. Okay, I'm going to secure the brake cable. Okay, so now we're going to flush the brake system. So before we flush out the brake system, I'm going to have to remove the old brake fluid from the master cylinder. So just remove as much as you can. Okay, so now I'm going to be flushing out the brake system. So the master cylinder is right in front of the driver, so I removed the old fluid from the master. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be pumping fresh fluid from the caliper up to the master. So I'm going to be opening up the bleeder screw, connect my Phoenix brake flusher, and start pumping fluid. So we're going to be pumping in maybe about half of this bottle. So we're going to be flushing the brake that's farthest away from the master. So in this case, it's going to be the passenger rear, and then we're going to go to the driver's side rear. So every time you flush a wheel, you always got to remove the old brake fluid from the master. Okay, I removed the old brake fluid. Now I'm going to be filling up the reservoir with some fresh brake fluid. And then now we're going to be bleeding the brakes. So I'm going to start up the engine. So I'm going to be pumping the brake pedal up and down no more than halfway until you get pressure. Okay, now I got some pressure. And then what we can do now is try the emergency brake. It feels real good. Do it a few times. So now we're going to use my hood prop. I'm going to push the brake pedal down so we can bleed the brakes. I'm going to be pushing the brake pedal and then putting it against the seat. Okay, so I'm going to open up the bleeder screw a little just to make sure there's no air in the system. That looks good. Okay, so now I'm going to be shooting some water on top of the brake bleeder, because brake fluid is water soluble. I'm going to blow it down with air. So I'm going to be pressuring out the brake pedal again. So just hold down that the brake pedal maybe about 20-30 seconds. Make sure there's no leaks. That looks nice and dry. Check out the driver's side rear. Make sure that's nice and dry. After that, put your tires on and road test. Everything looks good. So now I'm going to put the tire on, but before I do it, I'm going to put a little anti-seize on the threads. Then with my pry bar, I'm going to lift the tire up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten up in a crisscross pattern. I'm just going to snug it down for now. Then I'm going to crank it down. Then I'm going to double check it. So I'm going to lower the car down and road test the vehicle. I topped off the brake fluid, road tested the vehicle. The grinding sound went away. Another job well done. If this is the first time watching my video, please subscribe, give me the thumbs up, and I see you guys in the next video. Aloha.